Sure.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, Travis Lemanski from infamous Paintball, Pro DNA, whatever.
How long have you been involved in paintball?
I started playing paintball when I was about 10 years old, and haven't stopped. So all the way up from amateur through pros to now,
So you're the owner of Infamous and the coach.
Yeah, owner and coach.
What was the first pro team you ever played for?
Actually, it was my local group out of Detroit called Fusion, and so we turned pro together, and it was, like a local Midwest team, all my homies.
So, if you could give us a fast recap, what led you from Fusion to the inception of Infamous?
All right, I'll do the quick 30,000 foot one. So Fusion was like all my buddies that I grew up with, Brian Fow, Andy Copcock, Greg Posey. Like there was 10 of us. We're all like buddies that played every week together. Sometimes 3 times a week. Greg Sant, you name these guys. We turned pro. Had a little, you know how things change and you change the team name, but the team kind of remains the same. Cesar Pizzo was the one of the owners of the squad, and so I'm sure you know him at Lone Wolf.
Pizzo's Pizza.
Yeah, Pizzo, super awesome dude.
I love Pizzo.
Yeah, great dude, love the guy. We ended up having some guys stayed with Fusion, some guys went to Revolution, and we gave it a full year with Revolution. We won another pro event, and then we maxed out all of our credit cards. We realized this is a lot to deal with, and that's when we started getting picked apart by the top pro teams at the time. So some of the guys went to All A's. Me personally went to Image. I think LB went to Image. And then I had about a year or two on Image, went to Avalanche, went there, had a blast, won a bunch of events. There was the infamous saw him shooting from the woods, and that team blew apart. And next thing you know, we were Miami Effect, which was right at the same time as the NXL was formed. Not the NXL of now, but the original NXL. And
like the little devil-headed X-Ball league.
Right, and it was closed, right? It was only X amount of teams, but they had captured pretty much every current pro at the time besides Dynasty and maybe Naughty Dogs. You know what I mean? There was everybody except for 1 or 2 teams. But then the NPPL was formed with the WDTP guys, and those guys they had this awesome idea of Super 7, and they had these cool venues, Huntington Beach, this and that. So we were watching like Dynasty stunt on Tauntauns or Naughty Dogs or whoever the other team was at the time, and it just over time playing in our little box that wasn't televised, it wasn't publicized, it wasn't making any money. We just kind of as a team decided let's go play that. So we left the NXL, and once you left, it's very similar to the whole live golf thing right now with PGA. It's once you say I'm gonna go play this other league, we were kicked out and whatever. So we showed up at the first, our first NPPL in Tampa, and we played Dynasty in the finals, which history we won, but that's when Infamous was formed because we had to go under a new name, and we just spray painted our jerseys, which is why the logo looks like a spray painted thing, and so it's a long story, but that's the formation of Infamous.
That's the cliff notes.
Yeah.
The fast way there. So since the inception of Infamous, you guys have obviously stayed, haven't gotten relegated, so you've survived, but it's been a good bit since you've won an event.
Right. So I mean, the top teams, it's tough, right? You have the very top level teams have a ton of money. So once you develop a player or you get to a certain level, the top guys keep getting picked off. So, you keep having to reinvent players, do what you can with what you have. And I think I'm very good at putting together great teams with the talent that I do have. And, you just have to know that eventually these guys are going to get cherry picked. They're going to go to so-and-so, and this guy's going to pay them X and Y, whatever. So
you're going to have a Harrison Frye incident.
Of course.
It's inevitable.
Right.
Which You guys have lost 3 players this coming into this season from last season. You've lost Cody Mikowski, you lost Sean Shorty, and then you also lost Harrison Frye. But you've replaced them with Joe Barrett, Sam Silberg, and Ben Challenger.
Correct.
How do you feel that changes the dynamic of the infamous roster? The players you've lost to the players you've picked up? Because, after the interviews I've done before you, it doesn't seem like they're necessarily one-to-one exchanges. Like, they don't exactly have the same style or fill the same role.
No, I mean, as a coach who's also been a pro since I was 17, I've watched the game evolve, and I've seen, every weekend I see what our team needs and could use. And obviously, I think that Joe brings a certain style that this team needed, and I think Ben is a certain piece. So what's great for me isn't great for everybody, and vice versa. But I know already the pieces of the puzzle I do have, and I know what I need to go to the next level. So I basically am putting guys in that I think, will get us to the next level.
And with a layout like what you've seen this weekend, what is it you think you're going to need to go to the next level at this event to win?
Yeah, so this particular layout, although it looks like super fast, and it will be probably fast early on, will be extremely slow by Sunday. Might even be slow by the time you just see good teams hit each other, because no one's going to want to make that mistake. You see how big the back center is, and the snake corner fortress. It's like those are going to be really difficult positions to like dig out in a fast way. So you definitely don't want to have you don't want to be behind and having to like press through that. That's going to be bad. So point margin, this and that, coming out of the bracket of death. I mean, it's going to be very crucial that we just stay very tight in all of our matches. So
I've talked to you before actually about brackets, though, and I distinctly remember asking you, would you rather pull, and no disrespect for any teams I'm fixing the list, but would you rather pull Rush or Uprising, Saints, and the Brooklyn Bears, or would you rather pull Dynasty, X Factor, and another high-end team? And you've told me before you would rather pull the high-end teams, and it's because the high-end teams are going to play what you consider paintball, and the other teams are going to play more of a game of nutrition, not trying to lose bodies, shoot, and maybe even try what we consider schoolyard bullshit.
Not even that. I think that if you go in with the mindset of like, all right, listen, we're playing Dynasty, we have to beat them. Like, and then our next game is Russians, and then we have to beat them, and then we have to play X Factor. Like, if you go into this tough bracket, if you come out of that bracket, you are so prepared to go deep in the event. Like, you're going to be a finals team. So I would rather just, come in with the right mindset, and, rather than get an easier draw and maybe get some good individual play, like, you need teamwork to win an event, right? And so you need teamwork to beat these stronger teams. So putting it together faster, to me, is better. So,
as a coach, how do you feel about only having 1 week on the layout now?
I mean, I'm like, everyone that knows me knows I'm a massive like blind layout kind of guy. I just feel like we're taking the creativity out of the game with all this practicing stuff. I know there's people that feel very strongly the other way. Like I've talked to some of the Dynasty guys, and they're really like, dude, we like the 2 weekends, and it's more professional, it's more this, it's more that. I like the fact that guys can be more creative. So I think what they did by like splitting the difference is they just kind of pissed everyone off, and now we have 1 weekend and no one asked for that. So we asked for blind, or we asked for keep it the same, and they try to make everyone happy, and in my opinion, it's the worst.
How do you, as a coach that has, and a player, so you've been a pro since 17, so you've watched the semi-pro grind of the relegation and promotion. Like, watching what happened last year, how do you feel about double points?
I mean, the double point thing is weak. I don't think that there's any more weight on winning Chicago than there is Cup. I get it. It's like a bigger event in terms of like overall team count. but it's still the same pro teams. So like, what's the difference if we beat, you know, I don't know, X Factor in Chicago or you beat X Factor at Cup? It shouldn't be double points. It's just, I guess it's their way of saying it's the end of the year or whatever. It's a little tough from that standpoint, but.
But with the double points, it seems like they definitely doubled the World Cup prize for the pro, if not more. I think this is one of the, like last year and this year, will be some of the largest payouts we've seen in the NXL for a single event.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You could still win World Cup and it doesn't pay for your season. So it's kind of like where we're at with payouts is nowhere near what it should be. Not saying I'm the kind of guy that's like, if I don't have a solution, I'm not trying to create the problem here, but like, we have kind of the same payouts we've had since the early 2000s. So
being around so long, do you have any ideas or solutions to help correct that, or what could? I mean, because I feel maybe some of the world doesn't realize. I feel you have more insight into the NXL than a lot of people just with who your wife is.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, so I also know a lot of the insights and the infrastructure and like. People could get down on Bart and this and that, but like honestly, like Bart's the reason why we have the league as where it's at, and I think he does an awesome job, and he's like really good for our sport. But yeah, I mean, obviously we want it to go to the next level. We want bigger prizes. We want this and that. But I think until we can actually like open up the webcast and make it free, which I'm sure a lot of people hate hearing that, but like. That's how you get to the mass viewers, and that's how you get to the public, and that's how you get outside sponsorship. Then we're never going to get to that.
Do you feel paintball's at least taken some progressive strides since when it started, since the PSP, MPPL, original X-Ball days, or do you think it's just been kind of circling?
No, it's definitely baby steps in the right direction. I think that yes, there was great venues with Huntington Beach, right? That was cool. But I also look at World Cup and how many teams were there and the production that they put on there was amazing. So it is heading in the right direction. I think we obviously need some outside sponsors. We need outside eyes on this, but sponsors, they want to know how many viewers do you have, and it's behind a firewall. So it's kind of like, we need to open it up. We need to show everyone how great paintball is. Beer.
Beer's good. So ideally, if we could bring in outside sponsors, what do you hope that would change? And do you think it would affect the integrity of the game, or would the format have to change? Like, I think a lot of us hate split deck.
Yeah, and split deck is honestly like a scheduling thing, right? So in order to fit X amount of games in a certain amount of daylight and a certain amount of days, it's almost like a necessity currently. And I think it originated in Europe. And, the Americans saw like what they were doing over there, and they were able to like turn so many more games in a certain amount of time in sunlight. So that's why it transferred over here. But it is confusing for the viewer. So I kind of think it's like one step at a time. If we do get some outside money injection or some, I don't know, Red Bull or somebody comes in and they're like, dude, we want to be the title sponsor of this sport or this league, but we needed to, then if they want to put the money up to where guys can be there for a week and the prizes reflect that or the money reflects that, then that's how that would work.
And do you think it's Red Bull or an energy drink? Like, because we've had balls back in the day. Rain kind of come in and try something at events. But, I mean, I look around at what the actual circus is or the production, everything's entailed. And, I mean, so $5-10 million. I mean, I think that's what you need a sponsor to come in with is millions.
We have probably the most valuable demographic from a marketing aspect. You have that younger male, 18 to whatever. It's kind of, that's a very valuable market, but there needs to be like a fan base that's already watching this, that's growing. So somebody needs to, build that, and then we can pitch it to an outside sponsor to really take the ball.
I mean, so it's on Go Sports, I agree. Let's open it up a little bit. But I think you could also argue that some of it's on the players, right? Like, it is very hard as a media guy for me to get 10 minutes after a match with a player to talk instantly about what just happened, because you as a coach want him to get his ass over there and you can talk about what happened, or you got to go scout the next point, or you got to get to your booth to sell product, or whatever it may be. Like there's 100 things going on, but in order to have the story for people to be invested in, I have to be able to tell it, and I can't tell it without the time.
Right. So, again, in a lot of other professional sports, that's like mandate, right? Like, you need, you have to report to the, press after the event or after your game or whatever it is. So, but I guess it all has to come in baby steps.
I mean, and I was talking about this with one of the other guys, and again, I'll reiterate this because I am at the mercy of being shot by the pros on the field, so I do not want you to be fined. But the starting process would be is for Planet Eclipse to say, hey, if you don't make this interview, you get 2 less guns this event. Or, hey, if you don't make this interview, you get 1 less pro DNA gear back. We got it. Obviously, the punishment has to be in margins to what the payout even is in the sport. And I think gear's the starting point, right? Gear's one of the.
Well, I think the league would mandate it. Should be like NXL says, hey, you need to provide 1 or 2 players after every match to the press room or whatever it is, and then the press can say, hey, how did you feel about that loss, or I saw this beef, or how'd you feel about this win, or whatever. You know what I mean? That's the little part of the story. But it's not gonna be like sponsors. I think it would come from, every sponsor is gonna want, hey, I'm wearing the Nike hat on camera or whatever it is. So it's kind of like they would all love that. It's the league that should have to say, you have to provide 2 players after every match.
So maybe the league makes entry free, but yet if you don't make those sponsor requirements, then you get fined $1,000 towards entry, $500.
Yes.
For you as Travis Lemanski, you're like, Callie, you're going to go over there because as the owner, I'm being fined.
Well, yeah, exactly.
I mean, because unfortunately, you have to target somebody. It's hard to, you got to find the chief who's going to make the Indians do the work.
Yeah, of course.
So with the Harrison Frye thing, losing him, it seems like there might have been some rumors around January that he might be going or not, and then it was until about a week before ICPL he finally decided.
Yeah, so it was kind of one of those things where I guess, and apparently I didn't even know this till I got here, but I guess he had offers back months ago or whatever, but he had contacted me at some point and was, hey, I've got an offer, I'm thinking about this, whatever, little back and forth, but it was the week of the ICPL that he actually made his mind up or whatever, so.
And as a coach and an owner, when a player does that so close to the season, does it make you start thinking maybe we need some sort of collective bargaining agreement between players or owners to set trade deadlines or move deadlines? Just every other professional sport has it. I mean,
right. I mean, the problem is there's a handful of guys that are paying dudes, and then there's everyone else, right?
So a solution to that could be, is you have to set a base salary in order to get a collective bargaining agreement, and you could say a base pro salary is $1,000 a month. Now, the turn side to that is for the lower teams that can't afford to give someone $1,000 a month, is on paper their pay is $1,000 a month, but then maybe they have to pay the team $1,000 a month for paint, travel, whatever, because it offsets their sponsorship, right? I feel like a lot of it is just paperwork, and I don't mean for this to sound honest or dishonest, but I'm not wanting to bankrupt teams with this theory, but I'm still like, there's got to be a way forward to protect people to, because like you said before, is you spend all this time grooming a player, investing in him, and then here comes somebody that can either offer more money, more spotlight, whatever it is that a player defines as success for themselves, because as I've learned, each pro player defines success incredibly different.
Right.
A lot of times. There's got to be a way to help teams like yourself protect your investment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have mixed thoughts on all that. There's certain teams that they have this, hey, we're all going to stick together. We're going to try to win together. And there's that whole thing. You have other dudes that are just mercs and they're out there for the paycheck. But then, you have to know what you're getting into when you have those players, right? Like next year, you're not going to have that player, or you're going to have to ante up again. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a way currently to protect a player until there's like everyone's on a salary and there's a salary cap and there's a this and there's a that. That's what like NFL or other sports have done. But I don't think we're quite there yet.
No, and I think it circles back to needing that larger sponsor, right? Someone who can come in and give more money. So it sounds like it doesn't really bother you that team owners are also league owners, then, like Bart and Sarge and.
No, in fact, I honestly take the opposite approach. I am super grateful that those guys have stepped in and done what they've done for the sport. I know that people are like, oh, well, maybe they're getting an inside edge. I don't think that's the case. I think that if those dudes backed out, it would be bad for our sport.
There very well might not be an NXL.
Right. Well, there wouldn't.
So it's necessary at this point. I mean, I don't think Houston Heat hasn't won a tournament since the first event in Philly 2021 when Tyler Harmon debuted with them, and since then they haven't won an event. So that's over a year since winning. So I think it's fair to say that's not really an inside track. Edmonton Impact hasn't won an event since they beat y'all for first and second. I don't think they've came in first since then, have they?
I think they won.
Or maybe they won one more.
Yeah, I think they've won another one since then.
Because they didn't do it this season, though. I don't believe.
Let's see.
Dynasty won the first one. Saints taking second place.
Right.
And then. Then Damage won because they're in Texas. Then Dynasty won again.
In Philly?
I think Dynasty won in Philly, correct?
I don't know who won Philly. I don't think they won Philly.
Maybe not. But then they won Cup.
Right.
And they won Philly, but Impact won Sacramento.
Okay.
So Impact has won in Sacramento. So, but I mean, point being, Dynasty's won more in the last 2 years. They won. They're the golden team, I guess, but they're not owners. They're not. So I think that's enough to discredit that whole statement. Do you think maybe every pro team should have ownership stake, or the owners? Because in a way, isn't that kind of how the NBA and NFL work?
It is, but again, the problem with that would be, like you said, you've got some guys they just have a team, right? They're not paying players. They don't have this money that they could put into the league. So that's what it takes to run a league. And if you have, 20 owners and there's a cash call, can all 20 owners put in? Definitely not. So you can't be an owner and not put money in.
So money's just the great divide, no matter how you look at it. We just need someone to come in and give us a bunch of money from the outside and let us play paintball.
Well, yeah, again, and I think we have this great game and this cool sport, and if we could just put the extra eyes on it, and I mean, now we're in this time of social media and live streaming and all this different stuff. I mean, really now we could have a gigantic viewership. Guys like yourself that are dedicated to showing the story and telling the story. I mean, that's all part of it, right? People get attached to it. They become fans because of that, and so that's all part of it. But it just needs to get out to the masses to really attract a big, corporate sponsor.
Before we let you go, do you have anything you'd like to add? And do you have predictions for the brackets other than yours for this event?
Whew. What are the other brackets?
So
I know Damage is
I think Damage goes 4-0 in their bracket.
Yeah, I think Damage looks really sharp in theirs.
I think they have ML Kings.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing to take away from those guys. We just practice Damage, and that's a solid squad, and they have really good veteran depth in there, plus some youth, which I think is a key. So I think those dudes will be fine. Our bracket of death, I think, is going to be a grinder. I don't know what Russians are going to show up, meaning like sometimes those guys come out really hot, and sometimes they have a little cold start and then get hot. But they're all like super vets and they're good.
How do you feel about Harrison the Russians? As a coach, you ever think you would have saw that?
No, that was different. I mean, I know that they have a lot of dudes that have like visa issues or they have trouble getting across, so they were looking for bodies. And I know he was down there practicing, so they must have saw something they liked there, and that's great. I know he was. I really don't know the story that would happen between him and his team, but he was homeless for a minute and he found those guys, and so good for him.
So then, what do you think about looking over at the B bracket? You got Heat, Revo, Hurricanes, Diesel, and Ironman, which I find both the Ironman and Diesel to be pretty interesting stories coming into this season. You have Mark Johnson that has the whole "I took that personal" part, and just kind of set the dominoes that made you lose Fry.
Yeah, I mean, really, that started with Latin
Zach
Saints.
Hill, and
That was Latin Saints. I mean, Latin Saints thing has been like trickling through for 2 years now.
I mean, for something that really only lasted one event, it's had a great after effect.
Right. Right.
Not the after effect I don't think anyone in the sport thought it would be, but nonetheless an after effect.
Yeah. So, I mean, those dudes are good players. They should do well. If they don't, that's a massive disappointment. So, I mean, I would expect that team wins that bracket. Who else is in there?
So you have Heat, Revo, Hurricanes, Diesel, and Ironman. And Ironman have made some pretty interesting grabs. You're bringing back some old school guys and then picking up the 3 rounders of Thunder as that departed to just being the Bears now.
Yeah, no, the Thunder pickups are good. The coaches are awesome. Like, I think
They brought Travis back.
Yeah,
the other
Pax.
Travis.
Yeah, Shane. They're
Or
both are.
Shane.
Yeah, both are dope. So I think that will all help. They'll be more competitive than they were in the past. But if I had to pick the 2 coming out of it, obviously I think it would be. I'm gonna go Diesel and Revo, to be honest. I think Revo, was working hard. They made some cool moves, and I think that they might have it. Heat may come out as a wild card, but again, there's some good teams in that bracket.
And then in your third bracket, you have Impact, Bears, ML Kings, Level, and Notorious.
Impact, Bears, yeah. Level and Notorious. Okay.
And
I will.
Kings.
And Kings.
The ML Kings.
Okay, I'll go Impact and Kings, Notorious. Let's go Hurricanes with Impact.
So you don't think Damian Ryan brings enough to the level up table?
I don't know.
I just care. I mean, he's a former player of yours. I mean, you and Ironman are his most recent. I think maybe his only pro teams he's ever played for. But he had this longest stint with Infamous, then he played with Ironman, then he kind of retired or went off into his thing.
Yeah. I don't know if that's going to help them or not. I mean, Damian's a good player. Was a good player. I think he can. He puts it together. He can still be a good player. I don't know if this particular layout is straight teamwork. So it's really come down to like game plans and this and that. I think that Hurricanes have surprisingly good like teamwork, and if they can, if they can attack on this layout as well as play their standard paintball, they'll be great. Obviously, I think Impact is still stacked. Even with losing those 2 dudes, they have like a top to bottom like all-star roster.
So then in the final bracket where you have Damage, Aftermath, Uprising, New York Extreme, and NRG Elite. I think it's safe to say Damage takes it. But who's the second? Like who comes out on top between Aftermath, Uprising, New York Extreme, and NRG?
Maybe New York. I mean, I don't know a lot of the new Aftermath kids, and because I'm not practicing out west anymore, I don't really know what that camp's doing. Like if I don't. Those kids could be sweet. I don't know, but I haven't seen them play yet. And then I know that New York still has some good players, some salty vets that can that can do it. So
And we got Rich Telford coaching, so he's
right, yeah, Rich is
been here as long as you have. I feel.
yep,
You
crafty.
know, think you guys weren't ever teammates. I don't think you ever
No, we always played against each other
Yeah.
when I think it was like he was on Iron Man. I was
excessive and
yeah.
Avalanche and
Yep.
all that. So, as you've watched the evolution of paintball through different stages, if you had to take any parts and combine them, what do you think looks like the ultimate format for the next level?
You know, I'm gonna say 10-man.
Right, it's so hard. I mean, okay, so yeah, 10-man's great, but how are we supposed to film in the woods and hybrid? It's without having you guys all put those Insta 360 things on you, like it's
Yeah. So, but some of the coolest, most spectator-friendly games are 10-man because it's, you know, there's no coaching, right? It's like from the sidelines, you're watching and you see these crafty moves and no one says anything and the tension's there, and then boom, guys are getting bunkered left and right, and it's awesome.
I mean, I agree. It's my favorite thing ever since I filmed the first IC's Pittsburgh Open Classic last year. I think it was my first real 10-man experience, like true 10-man, like, and it was awesome. But I mean more in the tournament style. Like, would you bring back champion and challengers? Do you go back to 10-minute halves? Do you bring the penalty box back? Like, split deck's definitely not the answer for me. I think you do 10-minute halves to where we can do interviews in the halftime, but also it's leaving the team on the same side of the field for one half and then switching. The switching every point back and forth, I think, is incredibly hard for the viewer who doesn't really understand the sport to follow. Because that's the one thing about basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, any of them. You are always going to the same goal for at least the quarter, if not the half. Right? Like football, you switch at halves. Basketball, you switch at halves. Hockey, you switch at periods. But at the end of the day, you don't switch every time someone scores or every time the point ends. So it creates a lot of confusion, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like the, definitely don't like the split deck, but again, I think it's a scheduling necessity.
But could you do a split deck, though, that is 2 7-minute halves? You play the first 7 minutes on one half, and then flip and play the second 7 minutes on the other half. You can still split deck with another team. We just don't have to switch sides every point.
No, I'm fine with that. I don't have any problem with that.
I mean, it's just... How did you feel about when the league was discussing removing throwing the towel if you still had a player alive?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I voted on that. They sent me the thing. I feel like I realize that's confusing from the spectator point of view, but it does create some issues if you can't concede the point. So, especially if you're trying to, like, there's a clock involved. It's
So couldn't one argue, though, as professional paintballers, you should be aware enough to know you're the last guy left in a bad situation. You can run out of bounds, and then your coach can concede.
well, I think it was like the coaches couldn't concede. There was no concede button. The refs would have to call it. So
From what I understood, it was coaches couldn't concede as long as they had a live player. Once your player was dead, you can concede to prevent teams from running out the clock.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm all about, like,
Ryan Brand was hugely against it. He's like, no, I want to be able to concede if I lose one guy off break.
yeah. I mean, especially if you're coming from behind and you're trying to, like, mount any kind of a comeback. If you lose 2 on the break or something like that, and you know it's like, hey, I need all the time I can get. You know.
I think the unfortunate reality, though, no one wants to address moving forward to grow this, is we have to give up the integrity of the game at some part. If you want to make this game more spectator-friendly, you're going to have to give up the parts that you love now, or things that, like, it's going to be a give and take. I'm not saying ruin the game. I love the game, but when we talk about spectating, we talk about bringing in people who don't understand more so than the people who do understand.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a lot of different things, but you know, in the current format, I don't know how else you could not concede, but you know, you could do, hey, let's play 1 point takes it all. You know what I mean? You could do a lot of different things.
Fair enough. I mean, that's all I really have. If you have anything you want to add?
No, I think that's good.
Cool.